problem.
Mark, can I ask you a bit about the nuts and bolts of peace building? You talked about development and employment as drivers of stabilization. In order to get to that point, you've got to be able to hold territory or get territory, then hold it, and then protect it. And there's been some discussion about how that protection should be carried out, whether or not there should be armed militias and so on. Can I ask you, is there a general agreement between NATO countries and within the American administration and with the Afghan government that a district-by-district approach is what's going to really be spearheading this whole approach? And what sort of ideas do you have on the likely success of that?
The short answer is yes. It does need to be focused at district level. And probably one of the lesser known issues in the past is that we haven't done that enough. We've had provincial reconstruction teams operating at the provincial level, and there hasn't been enough focus at the district level. And Lindy Cameron, who's the head of the Helmand PRT, who's now been there for about 6 months, has made this a big focus of what she's trying to do with the British-led PRT in Helmand, to really put more of our, not only resources in the terms of programs, but more resources in terms of the talent and expertise down to the district level, so that we are delivering there, because that's where the people really interact with their government. In a country like Afghanistan, at the stage of development it's at, central government is really a series of people on television or on the radio, more likely, and posters. They don't really interact with them, but they do interact with their district governor, their district councils, and so on. And that is a big part of both the security and the governance development programs over the next year, and I hope to make it a bigger part of the civilian side, the governance and development programs. Again, building Afghan capability there, Afghan district support teams, district stabilization teams that we are supporting, not foreign ones. Do I believe that can work? Well, I do. I mean, I've served most of my career in various Muslim countries. The last two, Afghanistan and Pakistan, and I mean, one of the things where, in a sense, I almost agree with the previous question, is that we've got to be very cautious about imposing Western solutions and seeing these countries through a Western perspective. Now, that doesn't mean we should, go so far as to say that that complete relativism or that we don't have a view, but we do have to, I think, operate with the grain of the country. And with the grain of the society in which we're working. And one of the features of Afghanistan is that government really only really meets the people at that local and district level. As I said, the insurgency is largely local. Most insurgents are fighting very close to where they were born and live and their families live. And therefore, I think that approach, will it succeed? Well, I think any approach that doesn't do that probably won't succeed. So this is the right one to pursue. I believe it's got a good chance of success.
What about arming the militias?
Should I do
very briefly
militias?
Yep.
The militias question, because I know others have asked about that. I can't remember. Somebody characterised this as all being special forces and so on. There are a range of models which have tended to be bracketed under community defence, Afghan public protection programs. They've all got a different set of labels, and actually, the devil really is in the detail here. Are they armed militias that end up being predatory and oppressing their own, the populations they're there to protect, or are they actually part of essentially a genuine community defence, led and organised by the community, drawn from the community, and thus responsive to the community's needs? The latter, I think, has a significant role to play, particularly in the rural areas. Probably not just at village level, but clusters of villages, because individual villages don't have the critical mass to resist external threats, whether Taliban or criminal threats, whereas a cluster of villages, 4 or 5, half a dozen villages together, each still operating in their individual villages, but having agreed to do it that way, or at district level, which would probably be more than that, do have the critical mass to do that. And it's important to remember the Taliban, the insurgency, is indigenous, and they're calibrating too. They aren't, they also have to negotiate their way through the local and the very local politics, and therefore if a series of villages decide they don't want the Taliban there, they can resist it, because the Taliban are not prepared to simply impose themselves, unlike some of the foreign fighters who come in and who have a record of brutality. So in terms of these community defence initiatives, I think they have a role to play as long as they're organised properly. But clearly if they become an imposition, something that's in the control of a local warlord, that doesn't really arise from the communities and under the control of the community, then the risks outweigh the potential benefits.
Okay, we are drawing towards an end now, so can I ask people, I'll take a few questions together if you don't mind. Lady here, the gentleman here, lady here.
If Taliban is going to be included in government, as you say they might, what implications will that have for the future of women in Afghanistan?
Okay, gentleman here.
My question is similar. We will eventually have to negotiate with Taliban. What are we going to offer them? And particularly bearing in mind my own country of Northern Ireland, which you've already talked about.
Lady here.
Okay.
Thank you. You opened up by saying that development is up in the context of security and corruption. Horrendous. What kind of development is up? What kind of optimism should we in the wider world be looking at as a positive note to give us encouragement and an incentive to support the strategies that you're trying to undertake?